House Tintagel is an imperial knight house of the Questa Imperialis that is aligned with the Imperium of Man. The Knights of the House Tintagel are renowned for their camaraderie and strenuous upholding of the tenets and virtues of chivalry. Ruled over by High King Cameron on the cold and misty world of Helligan in the Loki sector, Segmentum Ultima, this noble house was discovered during the forging in the 32nd millennium by a crusading force of the Adeptus Ministorum. The monarch's dominion over the other three minor knight houses of the planet, Dartmoor, Linton, and Grenville, and the worlds in the same star system, but extends his protection over the entire Loki sector, concentrating his forces in defending the style of the galaxy. Although small and weakened by the defection of some of his knights in a recent event called the Crimson Treason, House Tintagel has an established reputation in the Imperium for the stalwartness of his knights, especially when they fight side by side. This reflects perfectly the house's motto, one and all. The precise origins of the House Tintagel are lost in time. Some argue that Tintagel was the name of the colony ship that landed on Helligan at the time of the Long March and was later taken as a surname or a title by the first ruler of the house. The first account of a Lord of House Tintagel is that of Baron Gordon Tintagel around the 25th millennium at the beginning of the Age of Strife, when massive warp storms cut off interstellar travel and communications across the whole human-settled galaxy. It is said that the noble killed a bloodthirster during a demonic incursion caused by a rogue Psyker. Inevitably, the different houses that formed on Helligan during the Age of Strife started to squabble among themselves. Some fell, others were subjugated in conflicts of honor and ritualized battles, but House Tintagel survived and grew. However, this period of struggle and isolation, called the Dance of Knights by the Helliganian minstrels, ended abruptly after 4,000 years. At the beginning of the 29th millennium, the planet was threatened when an orc war settled on the planet Saxia, in the same star system as Helligan. For the next 3,000 years, the Knight Houses of Helligan had to band together to face the perpetual raiding and planetary invasions of orcs. In this continual conflict, House Tintagel raced into a position of leadership among the other houses, vassalizing them under its banner. Forever on the defensive, having lost the technology to space travel and unable to strike at the home planet of the orcs, the people of Helligan were losing night after night in the slow attrition war. Unable to replace them, they were forced to give ground, and the orcs occupied part of the planet. In the year 713 of the 32nd millennium, a detachment of the Imperial Navy from a crusade aimed at retaking the surrounding planets went off course because of a warp storm and exited the warp next to Helligan. Establishing first contact with High King Mulder, the fleet commander agreed to help him with the orc invasion in exchange for the submission of the house to the Imperium. After a long and costly conflict in which Helligan and Saxia were purged of the Xeno presence in the year 720, High King Mulder took the oath of the allegiance to the Emperor of Mankind, and his world became a formal subject of the Imperium, and his house a part of the Questa Imperialis. Helligan is a cold and damp planet characterized by medium-sized continents and islands. For winters are freezing, but the summers are cool and pleasant, especially in the equator, where vast green plains are cultivated by the population. Most of the landmasses are covered by dense, eerie forests and misty bogs, often inhabited by monstrous native beasts. It is known that remains of the old orc invasion still dwell in these lands in the form of ferocious squigs, marauding snotlings, and primitive orcs, which are hunted by young knights as training for true war. The peasantry of the planet lives on a medieval level, working the fields and cutting the gigantic sequoias of the planet, the first exported material together with coal and iron ore to the nearby forge world of Murgle Secundus, bound to the Helligan for technological support and training of its sacristans. The relationship with the Mechanicum is, however, tense. House Tintagel has never trusted the tech priests of Mars, and even the councils of sacristans that serve the noble pilots of the planet are regarded with caution. The High King of House Tintagel rules from Castle Fallmore, a massive fortress on the slopes of a high mountain range. On Helligan, worship of the Emperor as the embodiment of chivalry coexists with the cult of the Seven Virtues and their embodiments, the Paragons, as respected as imperial saints. a tradition dating to the Age of Strife, when the great pilots of old were hailed as saviors and messiahs by the populace, each held dominion over a virtue: courage, prowess, loyalty, generosity, justice, courtesy, and hope. The Paragons formed the first chivalric band, the group of heroes sworn to protect Helgen in times of need. After their departure, their figures became prominent object of worship, their names remembered to this day, but the title of a paragon of a virtue did not die with them. Others could take such a prestigious mantle together with the personal heraldry of the virtuous knight. New champions of courage, loyalty and justice could arise after the death of the predecessor, the mantle bestowed upon them with the approval of several nobles. When two paragons of the same virtue existed, a series of knightly trials would decide who was the greatest, for there could be only one. Worship, however, is granted today only to those paragons who have found their place at the right hand of the emperor, while those who still carry out his work are held to enormous respect, and often they bear titles in the exalted court of the High King. During the Noctis Aeterna, House Tintagel stood its ground on the surface of the planet against invasion after invasion of Chaos Marines and demons. The disaster lasted decades in the system, and High King Caradoc saw all his 3 sons die in those woeful days. In the end, the arrival of the Indomitus Crusade led by Rabute Guilliman brought Helgen back into the Imperium, re-establishing contacts and communications. But the planet and the rule of the High King were weakened, and without a legit male heir, the downfall of House Tintagel was not far. Fearing for his future, the High King consulted an imperial diviner who told him that a trio of chaos witches came to the planet with the Noctis Aeterna to plant the seed of corruption on Helgen. In this vision, the witches would bring death to him at his house and set his castle ablaze. Frightened, the king set his best knights, hardened in the recent conflict, to hunt them down. Many poems were written about the knights and their quest to track down the vile servants of chaos even beyond the planet Helgen, and even those that did not find them covered themselves in honors. Only 2 succeeded. Sir Dagonet, the Crimson Knight, paragon of prowess, and Sir Robin, the Black Knight, paragon of courage, had each killed one of them, and the third one disappeared without a trace. Satisfied with the kills and convinced that one single witch would not cause any trouble, High King Caradoc organized a great tourney at Castle Falmore. The winner would take the hand of his only daughter, Lady Marion, and become the legitimate heir to House Tintagel. Many champions participated for the glory and the power, but the competition did not go as King Caradoc planned. The Black Knight did not fight, locked in his room and never showing his face. Sir Bruce of Minac, usually a ferocious duelist, fought sloppily and reluctantly. Baron Armel and his brother Andret quarreled relentlessly, both in love with Lady Marion, almost destroying each other in the joust and brawling during the banquets. In the end, Sir Dagonet won every single duel, without even a scratch on the paint of his Knight Warden, Invincible Might, much to the suspicion and wonder of many. No one doubted the prowess of Dagonet, but to beat so many champions effortlessly. Master Astolat, a sanctioned psyker of the King's Court, detected a corrupted energy surrounding the Knight of Dagonet during the final duel with Sir Armel, and, not believed by the King, went to the young heir of Minac. Sir Bruce seemed to snap out of his apathy at this news, and with a rising passion assembled on his side many knights, accusing then Dagonet of cheating and sorcery before the king. King Caradoc, in a seemingly maddened state, was furious at the accusation and almost threw the knights out of his palace, believing them jealous of the victor. That very evening, Dagonet married Lady Marion in a great ceremony, but during the night, King Caradoc was found dead in his chamber, poison in his veins. The day after, Dagonet stood on the throne on which the very last day Caradoc seated, and proclaimed himself High King by right of the law of succession. But the timing of the assassination convinced many nobles that the Crimson Knight plotted the king's demise himself and refused to swear fealty. Dagonet flew into a rage and revealed the powers that blessed him. The very Chaos Witch that he proclaimed he killed appeared from the shadows and blasted the defiant nobles with baleful energy. Summoned demons came out from beyond her and assaulted the nobles. Many were killed, others in fear submitted themselves to the usurper, while some escaped the throne room and tried to reach the knights, preparing for a fight. Fortunately, a group of knights, warned and led by Sir Robin, that had seemingly found back his resolve, were standing ready in their titanic steeds and broke the surge of demons that the witches were summoning from the warp after opening a portal of baleful flames in the courtyard. The lancers led by Sir Robin held back the surge, allowing many to escape the castle, until Dagonet, on top of his knight, showed up with the knights that sided with him out of fear or the promise of power. Clad in his invincibility spell, no one could hold him back, and the loyalist knights were forced to retreat in a small fortress up in the mountains surrounding Fulmore. Among the few that made it out alive was Cameron, the younger brother of King Caradoc, who barely escaped death thanks to Sir Bruce after his steed was destroyed by Dagonet. Upon a wooden chair, the young man was proclaimed the true High King of House Tintagel, crowned with an iron crown and a sacristan forged from the broken shin armor of a knight. Sir Robin then called everyone at council to share what they knew and discovered the truth. To all that were in the throne room was clear that the Chaos Witch that Dagonet allegedly slayed had seduced him with promises of power and blessed him with an aura of invincibility. Sir Robin confessed that the one that he was supposed to kill had stolen his courage, making him miserable and cowardly. Sir Bruce recognized in one of the sorceresses his stepmother, who his father married not long ago. She then controlled the noble Gawain with a spell and put him against his beloved son, who, oppressed by the parents who he loved so much, lost the will to fight. Fortunately, Bruce snapped back out of his melancholy, and Robin was helped by a relic that his squire recovered following ancient legends, and both managed to spearhead the resistance together with the reconciled brothers Armel and Andret, that discovered that the love letters from Lady Marian that they both received were forged. Unfortunately, her noble father was not among the survivors. The witch that stole Robin's bravery many recognized as a servant girl in the palace. She had stayed hidden under their noses all the time and had probably poisoned the king as well, and most likely influenced his will in some subtle manner. The sorceresses planned to weaken the other knight and put them against each other to secure the victory for Dagonet, but the Emperor blessed his paragons with the wisdom and willpower to unite against the threat. The next day, the new High King assembled the remaining knights, still a substantial force, having received communication via Vox that Dagonet had left Castle Fulmore after setting fire to its palace to subjugate the other houses of Heligon that dared to oppose him and meet those that recognized him as true king and would join him out of fear or foul ambitions. King Cameron summoned his remaining faithful subject and loyal houses and marched on Fulmore, taking possession of the now ruined seat of power, and with great efforts establishing some defense. The weeks that followed were ones of tremendous battles across the planet and countless heroics, until the demonic allies of Dagonet outnumbered the loyalist forces, pushing them back to the capital and sieging them down. Imperial reinforcements were not coming, despite numerous calls for help. King Cameron and his knights stood their ground, but the invincibility of Dagonet persisted, the power of the three witches was ever growing, and the enemy's numbers endless. During the final assault on the ruined walls of Castle Fulmore, Sir Guillaume, the old and the pious paragon of justice, was guided by a vision that he said was from the Emperor himself. He went to the dungeons of the castle and found hidden a relic blade from the times of the dark age of technology. The sacristans mounted the weapon on his knight, Divine Steel, and Sir Guillaume went to challenge Sir Dagonet, who had just made a breach in the fortress. The power of the relic blade was such that it nullified the chaos blessings of Dagonet, crushing the traitor's titanic steed like it was made of paper. As the legend says, Dagonet, battered and bloodied, at the last moment regained his sanity and begged Guillaume to kill him instantly, not being able to bear the shame of his actions. the noble baron executed gladly the sentence. The death of the traitorous knight sent a psychic shockwave that made the witches lose control over their powers and severed the link of the demons with the material world, sending them back to the warp. King Cameron and his warriors sallied forth and crushed the remaining traitorous knights, but the victory brought with it a bitter aftertaste. Many smaller houses had perished, Fulmore and many seats of power were ruined. So many throne mechanicus and the wisdom they carried were lost, ancient machines toppled and broken. But King Cameron endured the hardship of the aftermath and worked without rest to the reconstruction of his kingdom, surrounded by new champions that raced during the conflict. He promoted the new paragon of loyalty, Baron Bruce of Minac, to the position of King's Ward and personal bodyguard for saving his life during the first battle with the forces of Chaos. Sir Guillaume, the Silver Knight, resumed his position as Master of Judgment with all honours. The brave Sir Robin was made Herald of the House, and the position of Gatekeeper was given to Sir Armor, the new paragon of generosity, for protecting as many innocents as was possible in his castle and working tirelessly to rebuild his lands after the destruction that they endured. Sir Reuben, the paragon of courtesy, covered himself with great honours in battle and is always a welcome sight at court. The king even promoted Lady Vivian, a freeblade that helped the house in the war even when she had no tie to the land, giving her the mantle of gold of the paragon of hope. But no one wanted to take the title of paragon of prowess after what happened to Dagonet, considering it ill-omened. King Cameron decided that until a new champion would come and wash away the stain from the mantle of the Crimson Knight, House Tintagel would change the imperial aquila in their heraldry from black and white to black and crimson, signifying the incredible prowess that everyone demonstrated in the war. Many lesser nobles incorporated the crimson as the background in their personal heraldry, following the example of the High King himself. House Tintagel stands now in a precarious situation. Their numbers heavily depleted, the knights of the house have to compensate with greater skills honed in battle against the traitors and the neighbouring orcs of the Caradon sector. The planet is watched with growing suspicion by the Inquisition and the Ecclesiarchy as well, because of the taint of chaos that came to the planet, and many say that if its noble houses of knights were not such a great asset for the Imperium, then Helligan would have already been purged by an exterminatus. House Tintagel has few allies at present, and for this reason, King Cameron has recently established good relationships with the Crimson Fist Space Marine chapter of Rin's World, subscribing treaties of mutual help in case the orcs were to strike the low-key sector in numbers. Furthermore, the monarch met on the battlefield and invited in his retinue Colonel Gabriel Allen, the experienced commander of the 144th Cadian shock troops, to form and train a modern planetary PDF on Helligan by recruiting from the local population, after his regiment was almost wiped out. Licking their wounds, the knights of House Tintagel watch now the stars with weary eye, but with a certainty in their mind. The next time they will be ready, one and all.